Welcome everyone to today's Q&A webinar with Lifetime Adoption. I'm Kim King and I'm here with Heather Featherston and we're excited to spend these next 30 minutes with you answering the questions that you submitted online in your registration. And also, if you have some questions live throughout the call, you can always post those in your questions box. In fact, if right now you'd like to share with us just how's the weather, how's your summer going so far in the questions box, it's a good indicator that you have found it, know how to use it, and then we get to know how your summer is going so far. For me, it's a bit toasty. Heather, how's yours?
It's warm, but it's nice.
I think yours is beautiful. But we're excited, like I said, to spend these next 30 minutes with you. And just as an intro, if you are new to getting to know Lifetime, we started in 1986. We're a licensed child placing agency in the states of Florida and Arkansas. And we are Christian based, and we have a free application on our website at lifetimeadoption.com. Almost all of our adoptions are newborns, and I think that is what most families are seeking when they apply with Lifetime. And it's good to know that there is no fee to apply. You can fill it out at lifetimeadoption.com. The application does not commit you to anything. It does not officially start any of the official legal process of adopting or anything like that. So, Lifetime Adoption is a great place to start if you are new to adoption and just starting to figure out what the process looks like, which we'll talk about tonight in the webinar. You can also request our info packet for adoptive families, and you can email me, Kim at lifetimeadoption.com. When you email me, be sure to include your first and last name and what state you're in. And I would love to hear a little bit about your story and what has brought you here to request our info packet and look at adoption as a way to grow your family. So I love to know more about families and I love answering your questions. So we'll answer your questions now, but if there are any that we don't get to or that pop up later, you're welcome to include those in your email. And you can also call to speak with a coordinator at 727-493-0933. And Heather, with that, let's go ahead and jump in.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for those of you who submitted questions during registration. And I put a little note there in the chat, in the questions box, so you can hopefully see where you can enter any questions while we talk today about these questions. Like I say, may spur an idea or spur another follow-up question. Please feel free to pipe in. So, first question we got is how much does adoption cost and what expenses should we plan for?
Mhm. So we're talking about private adoption, which is not adopting through the foster system. Adopting through the foster system has kind of become not really a common practice anymore. Most counties aren't really allowing it or promoting it. If you are a foster parent, it's possible maybe that you could end up adopting a child, but it's really not their goal. So when families are hoping to actually adopt a child or especially adopt a newborn or a young baby, they generally turn to private adoption. And that is where you would work and partner with an agency like Lifetime Adoption. And this is private adoption, so it is not government funded. Generally, the private adoption cost on average in the US is about 45 to 50,000, and Lifetime's adoptions fall right within that. In fact, we have a great way of outlining exactly what expenses you will need to budget for, and those four expenses are your home study, Lifetime's flat fee, one time flat fee, and the legal expenses, and possibly helping birth mom with some pregnancy related expenses during the match. If you request the info packet I mentioned at kim at lifetimeadoption.com, I can send you over all the details as to how we get to those estimates and a sample of what a real family could possibly see in a real adoption as far as expenses. So, yeah, I would say around 45, 50,000 is about spot on for what families plan for and actually see in their total adoption cost here with Lifetime Adoption. And if you're new to learning about adoption, that number may seem very, very high because a lot of people don't realize that there are expenses when you are hoping to adopt. The services that are there for you, getting a home study, hiring an agency, there is a lot of service involved in each and every adoption. And I want to let you know that there is help for funding your adoption. And we talk a lot about that in our webinars. That's not the question the person asked, but just so you know, there is help. So I encourage you to reach out to us. You can call 727-493-0933 and get more information about funding options. I would say, just without going too much into detail, the ways that families fund adoption are through savings, personal savings, employer adoption benefits. So you need to ask your employer about that. Contributions from friends and family, as well as grants and fundraisers, and the federal adoption tax credit, and some form of financing, borrowing from 401k, a loan, a line of credit. A HELOC. There are many ways that families can kind of pull from each of these different streams and build their adoption fund. So maybe if you could say break down your $45,000 budget into three pieces, 15, 15, 15, and see which of those different streams I just mentioned could possibly yield some or all of that 15,000 and build your $45,000 adoption budget with the tax credit in mind.
Kim, one of the things you mentioned was the helping birth mothers with pregnancy related expenses. I wanted to talk just a minute about that because that also may be new to families who are new to exploring adoption. Sometimes women live in states where it is allowed to help them with things like their medical costs. Perhaps if they have private insurance, there may be a copay for delivery, help with transportation to and from the doctor, help with their rent or their groceries. And again, if you're new to adoption, that may be all new to you, but that is a legal aspect of adoption that is allowed in most states. One of the ways Lifetime is able to keep our total adoption costs kind of on the lower side of average there. If you have looked around with other adoption agencies, you may have seen prices at 70 or even $80,000. And that is because we really try to ensure that we're being ethical and good stewards when it comes to those pregnancy related expenses. That's one of the big differences with Lifetime, and again, that's something that as you are looking at other agencies, that's a great question to ask about is what are you seeing in regards to average pregnancy related expenses and how do you handle those? It's just really good to know as you are learning about adoption.
Yeah, I love
So,
that you added that on because a lot of people didn't know what pregnancy related expenses are. And by the way, if you are new to learning about adoption, I just want to give you brownie points and kudos for being here on the webinar tonight and listening to this because equipping yourself with the knowledge is so important as you consider your next steps in adoption and researching and learning as much as you can. And there's going to come a point when you've researched a ton and you just have to start making some decisions.
right.
And we're happy to speak with you and help you map out what those actual next steps could look like.
Yeah. So on that note, the next question we got is can you describe the adoption process? And obviously this is going to be from the adoptive parent's point of view because that's kind of who we're talking to tonight.
That's right. So, if you are a woman who is actually expecting a baby, you're considering adoption for a child you're already parenting, you can call or text us anytime, 24/7 at 1-800-923-6784. But like Heather said, and I should have said that in the beginning actually, this webinar is a presentation more for the parents that are hoping to add a child to their family. So, what's the adoption process like? Well, wow, there are some basic milestones that no matter who you're adopting with, you're going to have these steps to go through. One is going to be your home study. The adoption home study is comprised of meeting with a social worker multiple times, filling out a lot of paperwork, allowing that home study provider to take a look around your home. That's the home inspection or home visit part. You will also go through background checks and physicals with your doctor to ensure that you meet your local state requirements to be able to adopt. They will look at your financial records to make sure that you can provide for a child. Essentially, not usually an income requirement, although in some agencies they do have an income requirement. But really, just cost of living versus your income. Does your income cover your basic monthly expenses so that it shows you could clearly provide for a child? And you may be asked to provide reference letters from friends and family so that they can let the social worker know their opinion on your ability to be great parents through adoption. So there's a lot. Your pets will be involved if you have cats, dogs, or other animals. You need to make sure that they are all up to date on the local requirements for licensing and vaccination and how they are housed. Really, it's to verify you are who you say you are and that there's no pattern of behavior that would endanger a child and that you're equipped to love and accept and provide for a child as your own.
So, the home study, that's
Yeah,
one of
that's
the
the home study,
processes.
right?
Yes. So you also need an adoption professional like Lifetime who is working with prospective expectant parents who are considering adoption. And, part of our process is to ensure they understand not only adoption, but also their pregnancy choices so that they can make an informed decision about their baby. We also will show them adoptive parents who are home study approved, ready to adopt. And at a certain point in their pregnancy, they will choose a family. Typically, at that point, they will talk to the family. They could talk to more than one family as they narrow down the parents they want to choose for their child. At that point, you are considered matched when you're chosen. And it certainly is our hope with open adoption that you continue to have a conversation and really start building a relationship that will set the stage for the future contact. That's part of the matching process is we'll talk about with both of you what that future contact will look like. When the birth mom goes into labor, the family travels to birth mom's city, and typically the baby is discharged from the hospital to the adoptive parents. The birth mother will sometimes meet with the attorney or social worker prior to delivery. Sometimes it's after. She will always sign her paperwork relinquishing the rights to her baby after she delivers. It's usually a few days, and then every state has different requirements as to how long she has to change her mind. It could be no time up to 10, 12 days. It really varies by state. So, for adoptive parents, if you are adopting out of your own state, you will need to stay in baby's state where baby was born for usually 10 to 14 days to complete a process called clearance by the Interstate Compact for the Placement of Children, or ICPC for short. And it really is just a legal process ensuring that two states with different adoption laws are working together, honoring the laws of both states for this adoption. After that time period, which we really encourage you to take advantage of in terms of bonding, getting to know your baby, and really having kind of a nice time that is special and quiet before you travel home. And when you travel home, typically you'll have something called post placement visits, which is kind of like a social visit. The social worker who did your home study will come back, meet with you, see baby, and she will complete monthly visits, typically for about 3 months, and complete reports that will be submitted to the court when it is time to finalize your adoption. Finalization usually happens between 4 or 6 months, depending on the court schedule and your state. So that is not the time that the birth mom can change her mind. Her time is more limited. It's just, again, the legal process to finalize the adoption. That is kind of the adoption process, start to finish.
I have a few things to add to that. So,
Sure.
people often wonder, when do I get the birth certificate with the name I'm giving to the
Hmm.
baby? And that is once you have finalized your adoption. Now you have the paperwork proving this adoption is complete, and you will be requesting a birth certificate or filling out the paperwork to get a birth certificate with your names as mom and dad and the name you've given your child. Or if you're not changing the first name, then of course, a birth certificate with your last name. Uh, for the child to have. So, every adoptee typically goes through a name change around the time of finalization. So there's their original birth certificate, which is filled out by birth mom at the hospital. And then there is the birth certificate now that happens once you have finalized your adoption. I wanted to also backtrack to the home study part for a second and the profile part as well, because those are usually at the same time. Right. So usually the home study and the profile, those can all be completed within 6 to 8 weeks inside of 2 months for most families that are following the steps and keeping a good rhythm. So we usually have families do those both at the same time because we can actually start presenting In most states, we can start presenting a family's temporary profile to birth moms while their home study is in progress in good faith that they are following the steps for the home study. And as long as her due date is at least a couple months away or more. So, for example, birth moms that are due, the last 3 months of the year, if you were to start now and start working on your home study, we would be able to start presenting your temporary profile to those birth moms, knowing that by the time the baby is born, your home study will be complete because it only takes 2 months for a home study, but she's not due for a few more months or longer. Also, with the profile, you can create your profile while your temporary profile is going out. I hope that all makes sense, but you don't have to just do one thing, then the
Right.
next thing, and then start getting presented to birth moms. That's actually something by design from our founder, Marty Caldwell, who is an adoptive mom herself, a Christian adoptive mom herself. So if things are feeling a little different here at Lifetime and we seem a little more proactive, it's really clear to understand the steps and the communication is really quick and flowing. The communication is good. That's all because we're founded by an actual adoptive mom. So she knows what it feels like to go through the process and the uncertainty and just want answers. Even though we can't predict the future or when the adoption will actually happen, we can guide you through those steps and provide clarity as to what to expect, even though there's a lot that is out of our control and your control too. But there's a recipe, as our founder Marty always says. She says there's a recipe for success in adoption, and we can help guide you through those steps so that you can expect a good outcome, which is a safe and successful adoption.
Right. So let's get to our next question here, which is what factors affect how quickly we may be matched with an expectant mother? And I love this question because it really, uh, it really hones in on the fact that the expectant mothers, they are the one who chooses the family. And whoever asked this sounds like they may know that. And I love talking about, you know, these factors. One of the big ones is your preferences. And when it comes to your preferences, we're referring to what are you prepared to say yes to? For instance, how many races or what race of children are you open to? Are you more narrow and saying, Caucasian only? Are you more broad? That is one of your adoption preferences. Another is age of child. Most of Lifetime's adoption are newborn, but we do occasionally see children who are already born. In fact, right now, we have one of our Lifetime families who is bonding with a set of 18-month-old twins. So we do have opportunities that are older than newborn. Another one is prenatal substance exposure. Are you open to a mom who may smoke during her pregnancy? Are you open to a mom who may use marijuana during pregnancy? Those are questions that when you have your phone conference, we'll ask and talk to you about and provide resources if you need them so you can learn about the substance exposure and the effect on the baby. We will also talk a little about pregnancy related expenses and, really try to hone in on, what you are willing to say yes to or not willing, what you're ready to say yes to. What type of child are you ready to welcome into your home? So, obviously, the more broad those category your choices in those categories are, the more opportunities you're going to have to be seen. And when we say that, um, opportunities to be seen, that really is about your adoption profile. And when we talk about profile or presentation materials, we're talking about your website. Every family, every Lifetime family is able to build a page on Lifetime's website with photos, a letter, a video. We also help you build a PDF profile. So for if we need to print it out, those are available too, or just for more information for moms who may see you online and want to learn more. So another factor that can affect how quickly you're chosen is the effort you put into that. At Lifetime, part of the recipe for success Kim mentioned is we have guidelines for those materials. And families who really put the effort in often finds their wait times can be reduced because we know what birth mothers are looking for. We talk to them every single day, so we have a pretty good idea of what's clicking, what is working, what is not working, and we want to share that with you. So those are really two big factors that can affect your wait time to be matched.
Another factor is just really being proactive and getting that home study done
Mhm.
and making sure it's kept current because every now and then we'll get a sudden adoption opportunity with a birth mom who calls us at the last minute and needs a family there that night or within the next few days. And only families who have everything current and complete are able to be considered by her. So if things are not kept up to date in your home study, like background checks and physicals, if they're over a year old, you may miss an opportunity, which could have been that moment when a birth mom may have chosen you. So make sure that you keep things current.
Right, and we just had one of those on Friday, a last minute adoption, a call from the hospital, and that's exactly it. Our coordinators were able to show this birth mom families who are, they call it paper ready to adopt. All your documents are in order, your background checks are clearance, are current, your home study is up to date. Everything is ready, and you want to be sure that when you're chosen, again, everything is ready. Very important. So let's get to our last question. We were asked ahead of time, and that is, are you able to adopt within your home state? Now, at Lifetime, we help pregnant moms in every state. And sometimes one of the things families ask is, can we narrow our presentation to just our home state? Now, this kind of plays on the question we just answered about what your preferences are and how, what factors affect how quickly. For families who want to narrow within their home state, I would really discourage it because it really limits your opportunities. It is going to severely, out of 50 states, you're only going to be shown to one. And but before I would tell a family that, I would really ask, what is the motivation? What is it about that you are wanting to adopt from your home state? Because that may be something that we might encourage you to consider adopting with a smaller local agency, or consider looking at waiting children through your county and through the foster system, because that is a limiting factor when it comes to domestic newborn adoption.
That's something I'm glad that you mentioned because a lot of families that I speak with start out with a small local agency and end up 6 months later being told they need to expand their search. So, what's good about that is they already have their home study because they started trying locally, but a lot
Mhm.
of agencies that are small, local, they don't have a lot of outreach, they don't have a lot of online presence. So, how is an expectant mom even going to find them? Maybe she gets connected to some community resources or a charity that has their brochure or something like that. So those small local agencies, they can do really good work, really solid work and be very caring and have a huge heart for birth moms, but they just don't see very many adoptions
Right.
throughout the course of a year. I spoke with a family that they were working with an agency that had 0 adoptions in the past year. And so that's concerning. So perhaps that small local agency can just do your home study for you and maybe even your post placement visits when you come home. Maybe you do start with them for a few months and see how it goes. But really, most families understand how being nationwide is a huge benefit. In fact, the top two reasons that families share that they love Lifetime, and I always ask families about this because I love hearing what their observations are, is one, that we're Christian based, it aligns with their values, and that really, really matters to them. And because of that, they feel right at home here at Lifetime. And the second one is nationwide outreach, that a birth mom from pretty much anywhere in the US can choose them. Of course, every state has different requirements, so we'll let you know if there are any limitations on your own state. But birth moms all across the nation reach out to Lifetime. And there are a couple of ways that birth moms find out about us. It's through our networking through the years with
Mhm.
different professionals across the country and the training and the educational opportunities we provide to those professionals that encounter a woman who is possibly considering adoption or considering adoption as an option. And the second way is our online presence. Just like you have found us, probably through online research or referral, that's exactly how birth moms find us too. So that's really good to know. And when a birth mom reaches out, she's not on her own from that moment forward. Something I love to share with families is that birth moms here at Lifetime or any woman considering adoption, so a pregnant birth mom or a pregnant woman, she can get that 24/7 support from first contact on into the future, which includes even after the adoption is complete. We're always still here for birth moms. And she can text, she can do a video chat, she can email, she can however she wants. She can be on the phone with us. We're always at the ready to speak with her and help her learn about adoption. In fact, one of the most common questions that women ask when they call in is, "Hey, what can you tell me about the process? How does this work?"
Right. And Kim, we did get one question submitted here, and that is, do we have to have a home study completed before we begin with Lifetime?
That is a great question. Actually, no. And we provide referrals for home study providers once we're working together. So you can fill out your free application at lifetimeadoption.com, even if you're not 100% sure about adoption, if you're not 100% sure how you'll fund it, if you're not 100% sure what all your adoption preferences are, and we will guide you through everything and help you understand what we see here at Lifetime and guide you through those steps, or at least point you in the right direction, even if we're not the right agency partner for you here at Lifetime. And once you get started in your program, within those first couple of weeks, we want you to complete your scheduled welcome call as a new Lifetime family. And if during that time you don't have a home study provider picked out, that is totally fine with us. We'll email you over the referrals for those home study providers in your area that our other families have had a positive experience with over the years. And generally, those home study providers have worked with us on many adoptions. They already know our team, we know them. And so it just works out really well. But if you do have a home study or if you have a home study provider picked out already, that's all totally fine as well. In fact, Heather, this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up is your portal. When you begin with Lifetime, we're going to set you up with your own adoption portal, and that is the messaging hub. All your messages will go through there with Lifetime and your coordinator. You will see an adoption readiness meter. So it'll show you an indication, like a percentage is missing. If you'll be at like 80% if something's missing, and it'll alert you to certain tasks or dates that you need to pay attention to. And that is also where you will upload your full, complete home study that is signed and dated with all your supporting documents right there on your portal. So everyone can see it and access it, including your coordinator and yourself, and you always know what we have from you. If you don't have a copy of your home study because your home study provider has it and didn't provide you with a copy, that's fine. They can just email it all to your coordinator once you start.
Mhm. Absolutely. Let's see. Any more questions before we wrap up? We do want to be very respectful of your time today. It looks like, Kim, we got all the questions covered.
So, just to close out for the night, I want to thank you again for being here with us and for listening to our webinar here at Lifetime Adoption. We love these quick Q&As. We get to cover a lot of ground. And keep your eye out for invitations to our full info meetings that we have, our virtual info meetings that we have, where for a full hour, we talk in much more detail about the process of working with Lifetime and what you can expect with us. But you are welcome to fill out your free application at lifetimeadoption.com or by using the QR code on your screen. Be sure not to go away with questions unanswered. Tap those out to me in email form. You can email those to me, Kim at lifetimeadoption.com. And you can give us a call at 727-493-0933. Also, bonus points for staying to the very end, and bonus for you, you can access our calendar to schedule a quick call if you prefer before you even fill out an application. You can schedule a quick call at lifetimeadoption.com/inquiry. And then you can get set up with a coordinator here at Lifetime. So you'll have a person and we'll start to walk with you through your steps. Well, thank you again for being with us here at Lifetime Adoption, and we will see you on the next one.